There's a couple of chairs up here in the front. I apologize. This is all the chairs we have. Not a problem we always have at meetings. Sorry. But I do apologize. We're going to go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to welcome you. This is the Bastrop County Tea Party Special Election Candidate Forum. I want to thank the candidates who came. This is a very tiring time for them, and I want to thank you all for coming. First of all, how many here are from Bastrop? How about, yeah, Bastrop County. How about Caldwell? Lee? What are the what is it? Carnes? Gonzalez? All right, well, good deal. We got a pretty good showing here. A few minor details is we have the restrooms back through those double doors. There's some water and a few little munchies up there on the table. Help yourself. And the first order of business is we will open with prayer, and then we will have both pledges. And Andy will lead us in the prayer.
Dear Heavenly Father, we praise you and we thank you for the opportunity to live in this nation, to be in a world where you have created, where you are our Lord and God, where you have allowed us to have the freedoms, and where people have paid the price to see that we have this freedom. And we thank them for that. And we thank you for the blessings you've given us. I pray tonight that you would give us ears to hear, eyes to see, and a heart to understand. And that we would see and we would know who would be the best candidate to send to represent each one of us in our area with the problems that we have and the situations that we're in. I pray that you would give us wisdom and that you would be in charge. And we ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Don Laux is going to lead the pledges.
Good evening. I'm Donald Laux, retired U.S. Air Force and Texas State Guard. Before I get started with the pledges, I wanted to remind the veterans present that Congress has defined the fact that we are allowed to salute during the Pledge of Allegiance and the national anthem. You will know what to do. Please join me in the pledge to the flag of the United States. Present, Hans. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Order, Hans. Now join me in the pledge to the Texas flag. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the Texas flag, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please take your seats.
Okay, let me explain how this forum is going to work. Each candidate has drawn a number, okay, and this is a number for the order of the rotation that will follow. They will start off with a 3-minute opening statement. Then I would like to give a brief overview of my thoughts on the forum from Caldwell County on Saturday. And I will allow each candidate to respond to that. Then after that, I will open the floor. I would ask that you all form a line. We're going to ask that you, I think probably the best thing would be to just come down the side, form a line. I'm sorry, we only have one microphone, so we're going to have to share microphones. Jacob is in charge of the microphone over here, and he'll hand the microphone to you, the questionnaire. You have 30 seconds to ask your question. I ask that you be brief. I ask that there be no vulgarity. I ask that it be a question pertaining to either the general, all of the candidates, If there's one that you would like to have it addressed to first, you may go ahead and do that. The first person who is up for the rotation to answer, they get 90 seconds. And then each candidate will have 60 seconds to respond. Let's see here. We'll have our Q&A from the floor will be approximately 45 to 60 minutes, depending on how well things go. Our goal is to get as many questions and answers in as we can, so that you can get to know the candidates. Then after that, we'll have a 3-minute closing statement by each candidate. Okay. I'm going to read this. I sent out an email with a YouTube video on. How many saw it? It was of the forum. Okay. My statement here is a general overview statement. It's not necessarily what any one particular candidate has said or didn't say, but there were some questions, and some of it sort of got my dander up, and I thought, well, you know, I've got the mic and I'm the monitor, so I'm gonna take the opportunity to make my voice heard first. So here we go. The TEA in Bastrop County Party stands for Taxed Enough Already. So in some instances, yesterday it was all I could do to contain myself, and I did take issue with some things. So this will be a general statement that each candidate may or may not agree with. They're going to be free to state their stand on this. There were a wide variety of answers, and there were a variety of questions. So please bear with my question-y statement, and hope you can respond the best you can. The questions were mostly education-based: Common Core, vouchers, teachers, and teachers' pensions. Okay, now we all pay taxes whether we have children in school or not, through our property taxes. This extraction of tax dollars has caused a monopoly in our education system. The results are overspending on items that are not related to education, such as administration, buildings, or even sports activities. Being a consumer-driven economy, parents have made choices to educate their children how they see fit and not as government sees fit, and in return have gotten no relief tax-wise, but punished by paying for the system through taxation on federal, state, and local levels. Common Core is a federally funded program that seeks to have the same words on the same page, on the same day, hour, and minute, taught to all children across the USA. I am sure we have all heard the horror stories, seen the fuzzy math, irrational questions, disrespect for parents that are asked of our children. This system is nothing more than a testing mechanism to keep children in testing mode to make money for big educational companies that sell this stuff. Now that's our tax dollars at work. We are a consumer-driven economy, not government-mandated. Extracted tax dollars with no choice and punishment by overtaxation is a monopoly, and I consider it to be also un-American. Even if we had a spectacular public school program, parents should still have the right to choose without being punished. I also took issue with the statement of homeschool children not being taught by certified teachers. Does that make homeschool children less smart? If it is the parents' right to determine, it is the parents' right to determine who is certified to teach their children, not the government. Why are vouchers not the solution for these rural counties here in District 17? And why do taxpayers need to pay for social activities like sports in a failing educational system? If fairness opportunities are for all children, and that's the issue, then not everyone has the opportunity to play sports. So why is that such a big deal? Why are our tax dollars going for these? Why do tax dollars need to go for the biggest and fanciest schools that have nothing to do with learning? With the cry of no defunding of schools, there should be an even louder cry of no unfair taxation that promotes monopoly. And the loudest cry of all should be for the governments to get out of the raising of children. That's not the business of the government. Shouldn't a representative keep the freedoms and liberties of their constituents as free as possible without government interference of over legislation, regulation, by over taxation? Thank you, and I'll allow you all to come. There she is.
Hey, I am really sorry. I have to let it confuse you. I'm what again?
Well, I'll tell you what, how about it, number 2, you want to go? Okay, this is, yeah, come on up here and sit.
You can stand behind.
Yeah, you can stand behind. Okay. Okay, well, I'm not going to read the whole thing.
I'll give you about 10 seconds at the end of the time. You want 10 second warning for your time?
Oh, yeah, just that.
Okay.
So this is Brent Goldman. He's from Tahitian Village, and here he goes.
I want to thank Terry for this opportunity tonight to have this forum, and it really is, there are a lot more people here than I imagined there would be, so that's actually a good thing. My name is Brent Goldman. I do live here in Bastrop. We've been here, Cynthia and I and our 4 children have been here for 11 years. I'm going to do this real quick, the 2-minute spiel on my background. I was born, raised in Central Texas, spent some time, we have a family ranch in West Texas, a lot of time hauling hay, building fences, that kind of thing growing up. My grandfather was a rancher and a roughneck before that. I went to school in public schools here, and then at the end of my formal education in a private school, so I've had experience with both. I went to university, a very conservative university in Hampton, called Hampton-Sydney College, founded in 1776 in Virginia, but came back to Texas as fast as I could. I attended the University of Texas Law School. While in law school, I worked at the Texas legislature. I worked for a state senator, and I worked for a Texas House member. So 3 sessions were spent there. That's how I actually put myself through law school. The University of Texas doesn't like you to work while you're in school, but I saw differently. I chose not to practice law. I instead was imbued by the legislative process, and I saw an opportunity from a business perspective. And I started my first larger company. It was called Gallery Watch, and we took legislative information, we digitized it, and then we sold it back to lobbyists, lawmakers, associations, agencies. The kind of stuff that you can get now relatively easily on the internet, you couldn't back then. We rolled it out into several states, into Washington, D.C., became a very large entity, and we ended up selling it. That was in our early 2000, and that's what brought Cynthia and I to Bastrop. At that time, we had 2 children, and we were going to be blessed with 2 more, and I really felt a calling to just get back and spending time with my family. And being on a plane, operating a company in 4 time zones did not dictate well to spending time with your family. So we've been in Bastrop here. We've been a part of the community. I feel as though it's important to be involved in your community. I've spent some time on our water board. I've worked with our in the school system with the Education Foundation. We've contributed our treasure on many things, like helping out with starting at the pregnancy center. A lot of time in youth sports, because when you have children, that's what you're going to spend your time with: youth baseball, football, soccer, it goes on and on and on. So tried to as much be involved as we can, and with our church. Faith does play a large role in our lives, and I've made no bones about that. I truly believe if you're going to understand me as a candidate, you have to understand that it starts with the Lord and it moves forward from there. And so throughout the night, you'll probably see that in my answers and the way that I answer things. Thank you for your time.
Howdy, y'all. My name's Linda Curtis, and I suspect some of you know me because I've been very active here in Bastrop for a number of years. But you don't know much about me personally because I have a hard time talking about myself personally, but just a few personal notes is that I grew up in the state of Florida. I grew up in Miami with in a mixed household. My mother was a snowbird from Buffalo, New York, and my dad was a hillbilly from North Carolina. And boy, the fights in my household were intense. But the interesting thing was that I grew up in a suburb in a big city that we deemed paradise, and it truly was in the 50s. But we watched overdevelopment, overpopulation growth really destroy the Everglades during my lifetime in Miami. And my dad was always taking us out into the palmetto bushes. He was a big hunter and a fisherman, and so I got to really love the rural areas of Florida that are now pretty much paved over. So I got out of southern Florida pretty much as quick as I could when I was 18. I went to the central part of the state, went to University of Florida, and my life from there is a long story, but I've lived and worked all over the country in very rural areas and very big cities, from New York to the rural areas of throughout the south of the United States, the southeast United States. I eventually went back to college at age 60 and got a degree in political science at Houston-Tillotson. And that was quite an experience because I was going to go into teaching, and I was sitting in the classroom with people that were very much like the students that I was hoping to teach. So we got a big hoot out of the old white lady in the room, and it was a wonderful experience for me. I jumped into this race because having no aspirations whatsoever for political office since I ran for city council years ago in Austin, I just really was upset that I didn't see candidates who were really willing to run with what I think is the biggest issue in House District 17, and that is the protection of the goose that laid the golden egg, and that is our aquifer that everybody west of us is trying to get their straws into. And not to disparage these candidates, but I really felt after kind of looking at the field and talking to them that the best thing for at least the people who I work with is to have an independent running that was, I hope, capable of uniting us across party lines to get down and fight to protect the resources that we depend on. Rural Texas depends on land and water. I'm going to have a lot more to say about this, but I hope you will all consider stepping out if you have a party affiliation this year and voting for an unaffiliated, independent, small I, Linda Curtis. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Shelley Cartier, and I discovered Saturday night that I'm not very good at improv. So I am going to, and if you all saw the YouTube video, you probably know what I'm talking about. So I decided tonight that I'm going to come actually prepared. I'm just going to go ahead and read my opening statement to everyone. I just wanted to say that I'm Shelley, and I live in Cedar Creek, Bastrop County. I am running for the House District's 17 position, along with 4 other wonderful candidates. I have always been, for as long as I can remember, involved in politics, primarily as an observer and a voter, but I've never actually been on this side of the microphone. Normally, I was like you guys, out there. I would go to fora, I would ask questions. I'd be in the back writing some kind of carefully worded question that maybe I could stump the candidate and maybe I could make them squirm, see if I could, you know. Now I'm here on the other side of the microphone, and I've certainly learned that I'm getting a dose of my own medicine, so we're going to do our best tonight. A little bit about me. I live in Cedar Creek with my husband, rescue horses, rescue dogs, and a couple of chickens. And our son just graduated from UNT this month, so we're very excited with no more tuition to have to pay, thankfully. I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of James S. Smith, who was part of the founding family in Smithville. He chose to live in Bastrop, and he's actually buried in the cemetery there in 1891. I have had nearly 30 successful years in mortgage banking and real estate, primarily as a small business owner and a sole proprietor. I hold a degree in biology, and I've studied many other subjects as well, most recently photovoltaic technology, which is actually solar energy. I am primarily an analytical kind of person who likes to gather information from multiple sources and make a decision after knowing all of my options. So it is difficult for me to give quick 2 or 1 minute answers to very complex issues when I know I'd rather do more research first, but I will do my best tonight. I also have a creative side that allows me to think about things in new ways. I like to think outside the box and try to find new solutions to old problems. My years at the negotiation table have afforded me the skills I feel necessary to work with others to come up with those new solutions. I am running in this race because I feel we have lost our way. I feel as though we have too many bought and paid for politicians who are working in the best interests of themselves and their corporate donors. I don't have $80,000 to spend on this election cycle, and I'm certainly not taking any money from PACs or corporate donors as well. I want to bring back the concept of representative government by actually listening to the voters, engaging them in discussions, and learning with them the details with complex issues, and take them back to Austin. But mostly I want to make sure that we can preserve our natural resources so that someday my great-great-great-granddaughter can also live here and thrive. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley. Good evening. My name is John Cyrier. Believe it or not, it's pronounced Cyrier. Fortunately, my parents gave me the name John, which is after my great uncle. So I'm happy to have a simple first name. But I am John Cyrier. I was born and raised in Fort Worth. I have 3 older brothers. Grew up in the town in between Dallas and Fort Worth of Hearst. We all went to public schools, and my father was a Marine. Dan and I were talking, Marine in the Korean War. I say was. He is a Marine, but he passed away when I was 18. So I don't mean to offend the Marines in here, because you're always a Marine. After high school, I went to found my way to Texas A&M University, which we had a good day today. Found my way to Texas A&M University, where I got a degree in mechanical engineering technology, and was in the Corps of Cadets. In particular, I was in the Fighting Texas Aggie Band. In my senior year, I was selected by my peers to be the commander of the Fighting Texas Aggie Band, which was the 100th anniversary. After college, I had an opportunity to work with a commercial general contractor in Houston, kind of a mid-sized company, but they were growing, and one of the things that they had thought of was to start a branch office either in Dallas, my hometown area, or in Austin. And being an Aggie and marching up Congress Avenue a couple of times for some football games, I knew that the hill country would be an awesome place for me, with its natural beauty, with the opportunities that Central Texas brings. So I chose, and they chose me, to start the very first branch office for that company at the age of 26. At the age of 30, I became a partner with that company, and we had about 38 employees and was doing about $36 million in revenue. So quickly ramped up. This was also during the downturn. This is back in 2000. We had found, and I should have mentioned at the very beginning, I jumped ahead. I was out looking at my wife here, who deserves a lot of credit for me being here and a lot of credit for a lot of my successes since we've met. But Rochelle and I live in Lockhart. We found that our property there just south of the town of Lockhart 14 years ago when I moved here to start that branch office. Rochelle is always somebody that's, I'm optimistic. I have a lot of opportunities that come my way. I work very hard, and I get to the edge, and my wife Rochelle has always been the one that's always pushed me over across the line. So I'm sorry to not introduce you at the very beginning, but Rochelle is as you all can imagine, going through a lot of this. In 2010, I was asked and appointed to be Caldwell County Commissioner. I was also asked to run in 2010 that year. I was elected in 2010, and my last year I was nominated by our Commissioners Court as Judge Pro Tem of Caldwell County. I have continued to be very involved with Caldwell County. We'll stop there. More later. Thank you.
Don't make me come from behind.
No, I won't do that.
I'm Ty McDonald, and I'm happy to be here and thankful for the ones that put this forum together and the opportunity to be able to meet more people in the district. I am from Bastrop County, but I'm running for state representative for District 17 with the desire to represent all 5 counties in that district. And I know that sometimes when you have someone who's from an area, there's always the concern that they're only going to be concerned about that area that they're from. But I really have a love for this Central Texas area, for this region, and have a desire just to represent all the people from different backgrounds, different affiliations, and represent to the best of my ability with the experience that I've been blessed to have. And the way that I came to Bastrop and came to love Bastrop is that I met someone who was from Bastrop County. His name's Ronnie McDonald, and he was the loudest thing at Texas A&M University when we were students there. And he got my attention, and he followed me to the Memorial Student Center. We were both students at Texas A&M University, asked me to buy him a folder, and I fell in love. Then he took me to Jack in the Box and bought me some food off the dollar menu, and he was in love because I was willing to eat off the dollar menu. And so the rest is history. We dated throughout college, and he was always talking about Bastrop and Elgin and Smithville and just the area that he was from. And so I was curious about that area. My mom was very protective, wouldn't let me go anywhere. And so I got to sneak away and visit the area. And I really didn't like it at first, but once I moved here, I fell in love with it. And I've been here for 20 years. When I first came, I worked in Austin for State Representative Yvonne Davis. I was a legislative director for her, and I learned a lot while I was working in the House. I got to see the difference between politicians and statesmen, and I saw a lot of very good people while I was working in session, but I also saw the good, the bad, and the ugly while I was there. Focus on the ugly now. What it is that I saw was people who would be presented good legislation, but they were unwilling to support it because of who presented it. It came from an R, or it came from a D, or it came from somebody they didn't like their clothing selection, and so they didn't want to vote for something that was going to be good for their constituency. And I didn't like that because I'm a bridge builder, and I like to work with people to get the job done. And I realize that no one person can do everything by themselves, by him or herself, and it really takes a group of people coming together from diverse backgrounds to really make a difference. And so worked in the legislature, and after my time with the legislature, I became a teacher, and I taught for 7 years in Bastrop. I was also elected to the school board and served on the board for a term, and then as the board president. And after I did that, I worked for Lower Colorado River Authority as a trainer because I like education, building people up, building bridges. And I also serve as senior pastor for a church here in Bastrop called Breath of Life Deliverance Church. It was a non-denominational church. And every experience that I have is geared toward building people and building bridges. Thank you.
Okay, this is the way we're going to do this. Okay, no fighting, please. We're going to come down the center of the aisle and just allow you to ask whatever question you have. I ask that if someone has already asked your question and it's been answered, that you please step aside and let us get as many questions in as we can. This is a first come, first served basis. We're going to be all gentlemanly and ladylike. Jacob here is going to be in charge of the mic, and what he's going to do is he'll hand it to you. You'll have 30 seconds, and then he will hand it to the candidate. Any questions?
She's first.
I know, but I changed my mind, you know? That's one of the neat things. Okay, I'll hand it to you. Before we start, do you want to go into your normal order that you...
That's it.
I think we are.
Well, Linda was number 1.
I'm fine.
Okay.
That's good, that's good.
Are we going to rotate?
No.
Okay, so
We're going to vote, yeah. What do you mean rotate? What do you mean rotate? Okay, number 1.
You're going to address somebody can address the question to a particular candidate, and then the others will have a few seconds to rebut or comment if they would like to.
So the first person to answer the question first gets 90 seconds, and then everyone else gets 60 because you've had a chance to think about it.
If the question's addressed to you.
They would be general questions.
Right.
Yes. But everybody gets a chance to answer the same question.
This is a question that was not asked at the forum Saturday, but was the best one, and so I'm going to ask it for our voter. The U.S. Constitution and the Texas Constitution guarantee the people, quote, a Republican form of government, end quote. What does that mean to you?
We live in a republic, not a democracy. So for me, a republic is basically where the individual rights are actually ahead of the majority. I mean, a democracy and a republic are very close, except for with one we're dealing with an individual, as opposed to with a democracy where the majority rule wins. The best way I always had to explain this, in my estimation, is like you go into a courtroom. It's not 50% of the people that decide your fate. It's one person can keep you out of jail. Maybe 12 people on the jury, 10 people on the jury, and one person sits there, and that one individual actually overrides the rights of the other 90% or 95%. And I respect that rule. I think that in a republic, and that's we've gone away from that. What we do now is we're looking at more the rule by the majority over the minority. I think we need to step back. That's what led to a lot of the regulation we have. We see a lot of that at the federal level finding its way back down to us now. We no longer are living truly in a republic, but we're seeing ourselves living in more as a pure democracy. And pure democracy is the kind of thing that killed Socrates, not because he did anything wrong, just simply because 51% of the people didn't like him.
We have to answer questions or just pass?
No, you can pass.
You can pass it, that's up to you.
This is not a debate I'm getting into.
Okay.
Nor am I.
Well, no, Brent eloquently answered that. So, the Constitution gives us rights, the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights is from our Creator. It's not the government. The government doesn't give us the Bill of Rights. Our rights come from our Creator. And I know we spoke about the core agenda, or having the influence of our 10th Amendment and federal government getting involved, and that's not right. It's unconstitutional. So I believe that we are a republic and not a democracy.
What I like about our Republican form of government is that every voice matters, every life matters.
Hi, I'm Cindy Johnson from Lockhart. This is for all of you. Do you support or oppose selling water in this district to entities, political divisions outside the political boundaries of this district, and why? And are you our member or director of any group wanting to buy water from our district?
Okay, that will go to Linda first, and then we'll rotate around.
We do live in a democratic republic, I have to say. I bit the bait. There is the Republic of China, okay? There are different types of republic. Terry and I had some back and forth about this. So, yeah, I'm a direct democracy gal, okay? I want to be able to vote on more things and let people make some decisions about how they want their government run. So if you want, I'm a small d democracy person, and there are people who fought in wars for our democracy, and I don't forget them. How about World War II? Thank you very much. All right, now on water, it's a complicated maze of laws that govern how water is going to be dealt with in the state, and our groundwater districts are not allowed to say no to people when they come from outside our area and want water. But they are allowed to be judicious to protect the water for local people. And what is going on right now is, I believe there's a concerted effort to replace Tim Kleinschmidt in this race with somebody who's going to go in to this legislative session and do what they can to undermine the local control of our groundwater districts and their ability to protect our water resources. That's why I got into this race.
Shelley?
I don't remember the exact wording of the question, but do I support the taking of our water? The answer to that is absolutely not. I believe that is our water and that we should be able to determine our own future, and without water we don't have one. It is inherently unfair for one person with a big huge well to suck it out of the water suck it out of the ground for the rest of us to be left high and dry. And so no, I don't support that, and no, I don't belong to any groups or anything that are actually involved in that. Thank you.
Cindy, good question, and thanks for asking. This is also a follow-up, I believe, from Saturday. So I'm very happy to be able to answer now. District 17, we're very fortunate. We have our natural resources. Obviously, down in Carnes, where I was at today, it's the oil and gas, Eagle Ford Shale, all the way up through all of 5 counties. Water is also a very precious resource, and it is the most important resource. We can live without oil and gas. We can live with it. It's obviously very important for our economy, and we're very fortunate to have it here in Texas in District 17. But water, if we screw up water, if we screw up our aquifers, we're done. That is our most important natural resources, and we're blessed to have it here in Lee County and Bastrop County. I am not a part of any boards.
10 seconds.
I'm not a part of any boards, and I would protect the water here in Lee County, in Bastrop County.
I too support the local control of the groundwater districts to protect our water. My husband was one of the ones who formed. My husband was one of the ones who helped form the groundwater districts here, and I do want to protect our natural resources, protect our environment. I'm not on any boards or anything that would have anything to do with our water. And I believe that there's got to be the balance of protecting the property rights of property owners and also protecting our water. So I would work to do that and make sure that we're not selling our water to entities or to people outside. Because I believe that we need to take care of home first and make sure that we have enough natural resources, have enough water for our children and for our children's children and the generations to come. And I think a lot of people, when they do
10 seconds.
get rid of some of their natural resources, they're not thinking about the generations, they're just thinking about themselves and what's going on right now in the here and now.
I too have not set on, have any affiliation with anybody that's dealing with water or taking water or moving water. I did serve on a water district over here for just a few months because I was asked to step in to help, but we have a small water district here in Tahitian. My response with respect to water is simply that we do need to preserve it here, but right now what we do not have as a state is a system by which to actually regulate water. What we have is that we need to put in place, and it's going to happen. Folks need to know, we need somebody up there that makes sure that that system that gets put in place is not to our detriment as a district. And right now, there are a lot of votes that go up and down the I-35 corridor, and we're going to need strong advocacy to make sure that that system that creates protects property rights, but it also ensures that we have an aquifer here that we can have for the futures to come.
Jean Rayleigh, Smithville, Texas. Anybody that's ever dealt with a central appraisal district knows that they're autonomous and they pretty well make up the rules the way they want and not in the taxpayer's favor. So here's my question. What legislation would any of you submit to bring more uniformity to the 254 central appraisal districts in Texas? What would you support to end the system of appointment to the Central Appraisal District Review Boards by the local school boards, where the review board member then represents the school district and not the taxpayer? And what would you support to make CADs less aggressive towards the taxpayer and guarantee fairer appraisals? And would you support legislation ending the practice of appointing active or former school board members to Central Appraisal District board members?
That one goes to Shelley first.
hope I can remember all the questions, but one of the things that I do and I'm always involved in as a realtor is property taxes. It comes hand in hand with real estate, selling and buying, and things like that. One of the things that we have here is a non-disclosure state, which means that when you sell your house or you buy, there is no disclosure publicly in the county records that show what price you have paid for that. That has been sort of a part of the problem with the assessors, because they don't know. Because essentially, theoretically, your home is worth what someone's willing to pay for it. So if somebody buys it at a certain price, then that should be the appraised value. I've had situations where the appraisal comes in way higher than the actual price paid. There has been some talk at the state level about changing that law so that we could have that information, so that the local CADs can go ahead and use that data so that we have more accurate stuff. And then with that accurate information, then other homes can also be more accurately appraised that haven't been bought and sold. It's something that I think is definitely something we need to really think about to make things a little bit easier. Another thing that we are seeing is appraisals going way high, way fast. And that's as a result of the economic vitality that kind of goes hand in hand with the growth that we have. I am not against looking at possible maximums for every year because, excuse me, sometimes you have a big, huge jump that people can't afford. Another thing we need to look at is being able to pay our property taxes twice a year or something like that in installments. That would help a lot.
I'm looking at Susan Stewart here, who sat through many of our meetings in Caldwell County Commissioners Court. So really the question is, and there was a lot of questions in that one question, but I really appreciate it because of it's the appointment of these boards and these groups is really where that boils down to. One of the issues that came up my last year on the Commissioners Court is that it used to be, and Judge Brianna, you probably remember this. A lot of times it was just a stamp deal. You would get a list from the school board. You get a list from other organizations of, and it's things all the way from the historical commission to the appraisal board. And a lot of times in the past, and I'm sure it's in other counties as well, they would go through and it would be a stamp deal because that group would recommend somebody, or they would know them because it was their neighbor or somebody they worked with. One of the things that we worked on in Caldwell County Commissioners Court is the review of that and not making it a rubber stamp. And I think that's important. I think it's important to get everybody to participate in that, know who are the people that are going to be sitting on those boards representing you, because those are very serious issues, especially when you start looking at the taxes from the school district and from your property taxes.
I think I heard someone say a little bit earlier, no taxation without representation. And I think that a problem with a lot of organizations is that the representation is not very broad. You see the same people serving on different boards, different organizations all the time. You see the same people at the same meetings every time you go somewhere. And I think that we need to broaden our representation and bring more people to the table so that you have different people from different areas represented when you're making decisions. And I would support legislation, help sponsor legislation, work with other legislators to make sure that we're doing that. And that people know that when their appraisals are presented, that it's a fair process, and they know what that process is, and they have an idea of the backgrounds of the people that are representing them.
The appraisal process is a nightmare because you have 254 entities that do it completely different ways. One of the things that I would sponsor or be willing to work with is there are a number of things that you can do that can even that, just the methodology by which we appraise property, whether that be business property or whether that be personal property. The question was also asked, do people who sit on school boards, should they be able to sit on appraisal boards? No, my answer to that. You choose to take on certain positions when you take on an elected office. That means you should not be able to, in my opinion, be able to serve somewhere else and get monetary gain for it. So I would certainly be in favor of that. Really, the appraisal is a big, large issue, but I would point out that one of the issues that we have in all three counties that we have, or there's five, but especially when you look about Bastrop, Caldwell, and Gonzales, is that you have, we have a lot of rooftops. and we don't have as many businesses, and we need to encourage within these, because we're upside down in the way we appraise and the way we tax. We need to lower our tax rates by getting more businesses into these communities, use our water as that as an issue to do that, and by doing that, we can actually lower our property taxes. Until we figure that out and get our effective tax rate down, we're not going to get out of this death spiral.
My answer to your, I think, 5 questions is maybe, and I'd like to talk to you about this because this is a huge issue. And my sort of macro answer to you is that you all need to seriously consider electing the first independent to the House, at least in recent times, that's going to go in and take on the real estate lobby. Now, since 2006, it was in the paper. The Texas Appraisal Association itself released a study that said that across the board, 40%, we have 40% under appraisals of commercial real estate in Texas. This is a $4 billion loss per year. Okay, we did a study. I work with Brian Rogers in Austin, who is a real estate developer who's been blowing the whistle on his industry.
10 seconds.
And we did a study that showed that $1 million homes in Austin are 25% undervalued. So this is a really big issue, and it's a big lobby issue. Elect an independent.
Susan Stewart from Harwood in the southeast corner of Caldwell County. This is for all of you. If you could write clean legislation, like 3 sentences only, what, if any, restrictions would you put on abortion in the state of Texas?
To John first.
Well, let me start off with one of the things I didn't get to say in my opening remarks is that I grew up in a Catholic family. My father is the youngest of 12 in a farm in Illinois, so that was my upbringing. I believe in the Republican platform, in pro-life. I believe that life begins at conception and ends at death. I also believe, because of that statement, that life begins at conception and ends at death, that a human life is at the beginning. There is no exception. There is no exception with that. I realize there's some horrible things that do occur in life, and there's just no exception to that. If you believe that, like I do, that life begins at conception and ends at death, there's no exception. I know there's one of the exceptions that is brought up is the save the mother, if there's a decision to be made to save the child or mother. You know, that actually is a very rare occasion. That is a very rare occasion. And it's really looked upon, you know, as surgeons, very looked upon as when the medics are out in triage or the EMS is out in triage, you have to decide. You have to make a very hard decision, usually a split-second decision on who to save. I can understand that, and I can appreciate that if it's a decision on trying to save the mother. Yes, I can see that, but that's a very special occasion, and that's usually done by professionals in a very traumatic occurrence. I am also endorsed by Texas Alliance for Life. Thank you.
I am very strongly pro-life. I'm a pro-life Democrat, and I believe that life begins at conception. I also do not believe in the death penalty or euthanasia because I'm pro-life. I believe in life across the board. I would vote as Senator Zaffarini votes, not to limit access to health care for women, because I think that that's important. And I would stand with Texas women in terms of providing health care for women, breast cancer screening and all of those things. But I would not vote for legislation that would empower people to be able to end the life of unborn children, because I support the right to life. And other exceptions, as John brought up, would be in the case of the danger of the life of a mother. Although if my life were in danger, I would still want to have my child. If I were abused, if I were a victim of incest, I would still have the child and maybe consider other options. But I think that I would keep my child. But in terms of other people that have that before them, I would want to support education measures so that they can be educated about other options, because a lot of times when people are considering abortion, they're fearful. My mother grew up in a time when people were drinking Clorox and they were using clothes hangers, and I want to make sure that they're educated so that they're not fearful and emotional and make decisions that they're going to have to live with for the rest of their lives.
I guess we're going to find one of the distinctions here. I'm pro-life, and I mean, it's at conception and it's life throughout. So I do not make an exception to that ever. My stance is, I formed you in the womb and I knew you before you were born. So, you know, there are, like was mentioned, there are times and situations that make things extravagant, but there are members of my family that were told that they could not be born without saving the life of the mother, and I'm glad that the mother chose to proceed on anyway. But I just believe that, you know, the Lord will take us home when the Lord takes us home, and otherwise He gives us life. So that's where I stand, and that stands true for when we're no experiments on children, on embryos, or any of the other kind of. I've been asked that when I've been out walking the district. What do you think about embryonic stem cells? You know, well, no, I don't believe you should be doing any of that. So I guess that's where I have a distinction.
I developed a position on this way back when Ross Perot and a bunch of us got together to build a third party called the Reform Party, and we had people who were pro-life and people who were pro-choice and all points in between and beyond that were fighting about that. And we kept fighting and fighting, and finally we decided, why don't we just put this aside for a minute? And then, because we realized that the country is, the people who are running the country, because we were dealing with a national organization at the time, was being stolen out from underneath us. We had a looming debt. Whether you love Ross Perot or can't stand the guy, he was right about the debt, okay? So what I'm telling you about this in terms of how I feel after years of working with people across the aisle on this issue, we will never agree. And I don't want the government mediating this for us. That's the limited government position. Stay out of our lives, please.
I can see that point. I am also pro-choice, but I like to call it pro-privacy. Bottom line is, I can't think of a larger example of big government than a government that dictates what a woman can and cannot do to herself. It's none of my business, it's none of anybody's business what one woman decides to do or not do. And that's my flat out opinion on that. What I'm concerned about is that we've been having this conversation since the 1970s, and we're ignoring the real problem here, and that is that we all need to come together and figure out how to prevent unwanted pregnancies in the first place. We wouldn't have to have this argument, and we need to put our resources and our energy that we are so fervently both on both sides of this thing and come up with ways for women to have easy access to health care and birth control. If it needs to be free for poor women, that's what we need to do, because that's an investment in the future. Birth control doesn't cost much compared to raising a child. Thank you.
Kathy Glass McDade. I really just got up here so I could get in front of the fan. Get some glare. No, when Texas passed Proposition 6, that's the water proposition, supporters said that if you like your water well, you can keep it. Should we trust them? Did you support Proposition 6? Why or why not?
Ty, you're first. Ty, keep it up so we can hear you.
Preach. You can do that loud, right?
I do, and I'd keep you a long time too. I don't think you want that.
No, I'm charged of that.
Yes, Proposition 6, and I can't say whether I would trust the ones that said that or not, because I don't know them, but just working around politics long enough, I know that there's usually an agenda. There's usually something underlying what's going on, but I do, like I said earlier, do want to protect our groundwater districts, and just come together so that we can plan have a comprehensive planning session with different people, different stakeholders, so that we can come up with some solutions to the problems that we're having in this growing area, and work together so that we can protect our groundwater, but also protect the rights of the property owners.
Yeah, with respect, I mean, one of the growing issues is the property owners that do have the groundwater. I certainly believe that if you are next to somebody who's pumping water out, let's just take the basis that they're trucking water out, which they're doing, but if you take something from somebody else, you need to compensate them for it. That is a taking. We are not doing that currently. That needs to be a part of this whole process whereby we start compensating for takings. If you run pipes across people's lands and do eminent domain, you have taken land from them. You should compensate them for that. And I'm not going to jump in and say that that's the right decision, that we should just be trucking water out of it, because I don't believe that. What I do believe is that, when we do take something for somebody, they should be compensated for that. We currently have a system that's in place that doesn't compensate people. If I drain my neighbor's well, and he has to go down another 50, 7,500 feet to get water again, I need to pay for that. That is a taking. So with respect to that, on the other aspect of it, I do believe we need to have a better understanding of the water that is there. Nobody can give me a straight answer from I can find from either side that can actually tell me what we actually have in terms of our total water resource and its rechargeability, and that ought to be the starting point for any of this.
To try to actually answer your question, I opposed Proposition 6, and I was one of the few people who stood up and said and questioned this, and I got that lady that's standing right next to you to spend months writing a paper analyzing an incredibly complex piece of legislation that we did not understand, folks. We voters did not understand. This is the point of the independent movement, is to give you that outsider viewpoint without the demands of the political parties. This thing was coming down like a juggernaut. You had no choice. The few counties that we worked in to say don't vote for this, we actually won. But everybody lined up on this, all the municipalities, it was a juggernaut. And I have to say that none of the folks here really have been there for the last 3 years. This is why I jumped into the race. Where have you been? Guys, you have an opportunity to elect somebody who isn't just telling you things now, but's been there fighting for you. I need your support.
So if you have a well and you want to keep it, that's really great. Unless, of course, your neighbor decides that he's going to sell his interest to water profiteers and suck out all the water underneath all of us. Then you have a well. You can keep your well, but there's nothing in it. So obviously, no, I'm not for that at all. So that's about all I need to say on that subject. Other than you had mentioned something about you're trying to find information, I highly recommend Steve Box at Environmental Stewardship. He has an awful lot of scientific information about the actual aquifer and what is still in there, and what he runs tests on how much is going to be taken by 4-Star or whoever else, and he will give you good information on that.
So I believe Prop 6 was November of last year, over a year ago. I was in favor of Prop 6. I studied it a lot because like I stated earlier, water is our precious resource. It is our resource that is going to be the economy of our future. It is going to be the future of our children. It's going to be the future of our land. Part of Prop 6 that didn't get as much push or didn't get as much attention is all the education, the money that was being spent on education part of Prop 6. Educating consumers about the waste that we use and the waste that we're using and putting it on our lawns, the waste that's being used of water. So conservation was a big part of Prop 6. I support conservation. I support education. But another big piece of this, and a big piece of it, was technology. We put a man on the moon in the 60s. We can figure this out. A big portion of Prop 6 was figuring out new technology like desalination. That is being done. That was a big part of why that $2 billion was approved pretty overwhelmingly by citizens of the state of Texas. And I believe in it. I believe that we've got it. It's a serious issue. It's the future of not only of our state, but our future of our country. And I do not have a problem spending my taxpayers' money into something that is so important to the rest of our future. So yes, I did support Prop 6. Over there.
Good evening. I'm Donald Laux. I'm a Republican. I'm the first Republican elected to office in Bastrop County. My wife, Sarah, is the district clerk, is currently serving. Reading some of the campaign material, I have to say I take my Republican roots seriously, and as well as party platform and philosophy. I would never accept the endorsements of liberal Democrats like Johnny Sanders or Bully De La Rosa, nor the most prominent rhino in Bastrop County, Commissioner Clara Beckett. Mr. Siri, sorry.
No problem. Took me 10 years.
This is directed at you.
I understand.
I would like to know how you reconcile the cognitive dissonance this creates for Republicans in voting in this election.
I'm up, right?
Yes. It's directed to you.
Donald, first of all, thank you for the service to our country, and also I know you're very involved with the community and very involved with the Republican Party. First of all, I was the second Republican. I didn't get the first, but I was the second Republican in Caldwell County's Commissioner's Court. I took that responsibility. I am also a precinct chair on the Caldwell County Republicans. I did that right after, as soon as I could, as soon as I was done with being an elected official. I signed up for that position, and I'm Precinct 104 chair. I've also been very involved with our party, as many of you all know. I'm very proud of the Republican Party. But I'm also very proud of the supporters that I've got, like Commissioner Clara Beckett. I know some of you all in here have worked with Commissioner Beckett, and some of the other people that were willing to, right up front, willing to ask me to do this, knew that I could work with both sides. And I'm not offended by that. And those are my friends, those are colleagues, those are people that I've worked with. Those are people that respect me and asked that they could be a supporter, and I didn't turn them down. Yes, I had some very strong Republican friends as well that were upset with some of those names. But you know what? That is part of it. I'll always do the right thing. I will continue to do the best thing I can. I surround myself with good people, and I take care of them. And the last thing I'm going to do is friends like Commissioner Beckett or others that have supported me, and the long list of, I've got almost 100 former and current elected officials and civic leaders on the list of supporters. That's all the way from Karnes County all the way up to Lee County. And I'm very proud of that. And I'm very humbled by it too. Thank you. Oh, it's just
Next question.
We'll move on unless you all want to say something. But we'll
Unless y'all want to speak on my behalf.
My name is Alicia Thornton, and I'm from Linton Springs, Texas.
Wait, you wanted to say something.
There is.